Blake Ferguson is back after initially being waived on roster cutdown day on Tuesday. Miami brings back the long snapper onto this roster. Welcome in the Dolphins today by Chat Sports. I am Nick Roloff. A lot of roster moves to break down, some additions to the practice squad, as well as some roster shuffling with the 53-man. And we'll start with Blake Ferguson. As I mentioned, he was released/waived on Tuesday, which caught me by surprise. I know it caught a lot of other people by surprise as well, but the expectation was always that he was going to return to the 53-man roster. They just had some injuries to deal with, and they were deciding which players need to be placed on IR, which ones didn't, and ultimately they did place someone IR. We'll get to him in just a second, but I am glad that Blake Ferguson is back on this Dolphins 53-man. He's a great long snapper. He's an integral part of the special teams unit that Miami is putting together out there, so I am happy that he is here. And I know a lot of you are as well. Welcome Blake Ferguson back to the roster of the Miami Dolphins. Spam those 48s, which is his jersey number now after he switched from 44 to allow the first-round pick from Penn State, Chopper Robinson, to have his jersey number all throughout Penn State. Spam those 48s down in the comment section. I mentioned a corresponding move that had to be made for Miami, and it's in the form of placing rookie safety Patrick McMorris on IR. The safety got banged up after the first two preseason games against Atlanta and Washington. Did not play in that final preseason game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which actually led me to believe that he could be on the outs of this 53-man roster. Ultimately kept through that initial 53, but then is being placed on IR, which means he'll miss the first 4 games of the season. The 6th-round pick out of Cal is someone who performed really well in the preseason. He had a nice little turnover, fumble recovery, a PBU, 9 tackles. He performed extremely well in those 2 games, which I think ultimately led him to making the 53-man initially, but then going on IR. So now that he is on IR, the Dolphins safety room looks like this, which is kind of what we expected all along, right? It was always going to be those top 2 guys, Javon Holland and Jordan Poyer, as your starting safeties. Marcus May, who was signed late into the offseason, really a couple weeks after the NFL draft. Like, we always knew that he was going to be the 3rd safety after the strong August he had. It's all about who was going to be the 4th safety. And I'm going to be honest, if Patrick McMorris isn't banged up, it wouldn't have shocked me if McMorris was ended up being kept over Elijah Campbell. But with the injury, Campbell is your 4th safety. All right, let's move over to the practice squad now for the Miami Dolphins because they added 7 players to the P squad. We'll look at the entire practice squad and how many spots the Dolphins still have available in just a second. But we have to start with the most notable signing to the practice squad. We did talk about the other 6 yesterday, so if you want to see the first 6, watch yesterday's video, but we're also going to recap it at the end of today's episode as well. But D'Wayne Eskridge is the one that kind of stunned me the most and the one that gets me the most excited for, at least in terms of the Dolphins adding to the practice squad from players that were not already in Dolphins training camp and with Miami in the preseason. Eskridge is a former 2nd-round pick out of Western Michigan, and he is a dynamic player with the ball in his hands. He has really never been able to figure it out on how to be a good wide receiver in the National Football League, which is his natural position. So a wide receiver added to the P squad. That's now 2 with Eric Ezukama. And the talent is there. We just was never able to figure it out in Seattle. He's a gadget player where you can get it to him in jet sweep motions, pop passes, screens. That's where he excels. He's also a dynamic punt returner and kick returner. Like I said, this is someone who, if I don't think he's going to ever really get playing time on this Dolphins team because to me, he's no better than Malik Washington, who you drafted this year, and I have very high hopes for. But it is intriguing to see them go out such a high-profile wide receiver / return man to the practice squad. Could it be signaling maybe lack of faith in a Braxton Berrios or someone like that? Possibly, but I do find it fascinating that they do add D'Wayne Eskridge. This is why you need to be subscribed to the channel because we have you covered on every single move the Miami Dolphins make. No matter how big, no matter how small, we will always make sure you're covered with everything surrounding the Miami Dolphins. Just crossed 58,500. Appreciate all the real ones that have just joined the channel. Goal is to get to 59K before week 1 begins in a week and a half. Can we get there? Yes, we can. All right, next player added to the practice squad, Naquan Jones, the defensive tackle. And this was a sharp play by me. Listen, don't want to go out there and give me a pat on the back too often because Lord knows I have not always been the most accurate in terms of my predictions, spanning across the Heat channel and the Dolphins channel. But on our waiver wire targets video that I put out Wednesday morning before the waiver claims went through and before teams added to the practice squad, I labeled Naquan Jones as someone that the Dolphins could go out and get, someone who's been in the NFL for a while. He's had a career at least, right? Not often you can say that about players on your P squad. He's had 62 tackles. He had 3.5 sacks. And I always thought that he made sense if the Dolphins wanted to add a nose tackle presence to the practice squad in case Benito Jones can't go for the first couple weeks of the season as he's dealing with an injury, and you could elevate someone from the practice squad. And Jones is someone that this Dolphins front office was very excited about adding. In his press conference yesterday, he was asked about some players, and Naquan Jones was one that he brought up, and how he mentioned that he's really excited to get him in this building, and the Dolphins coaching staff is really excited to get their hands on Naquan Jones. So this is someone that this organization is kind of high on from an exterior player perspective of bringing him in and getting able to do that for the first time. So I would not be surprised, folks, if Jones is ultimately active for week 1 of the NFL season against the Jaguars, because if they're excited about him and he plays the same position of Benito Jones, don't know if he's going to go on IR, but Benito could be missing the first couple weeks of the season, which gives the ability for Jones to be activated to the 53-man roster on game day. The quarterback that Miami added after they released Mike White, I think Miami was hoping to get White back on the Dolphins practice squad due to his familiarity and ability to help scout and read opposing defenses in the film room for Tua and Skylar Thompson. He signed with those traders over in Buffalo, the Bills, so Mike White's officially dead to me. But we always knew that they were going to add a quarterback to the practice squad at bare minimum. That guy is now Tim Boyle, which, if you don't remember Tim Boyle, he actually started for the New York Jets against the Miami Dolphins last year on that Black Friday game where he threw the Hail Mary at the end of the first half. Javon Holland picks it off in the end zone and returns it all the way for an end zone. So, Tim Boyle, Dolphins legend. But he was actually pretty decent in the preseason for the Houston Texans. You see it on screen, 2 tutties, no INTs, so he's already better than what Mike White was doing for this Dolphins offense in the preseason. Tim Boyle, veteran, been around the block. He's been on a lot of different teams, is your quarterback on the practice squad, where he may be elevated sometimes during the regular season. Wouldn't be surprised about that, but it's good to finally know who that third quarterback is for the Dolphins. I would have waited. They signed him late yesterday to the practice squad, but Tyler Huntley's available now. Wonder if Miami could be interested in him. We've talked about that possibility over the past couple of weeks. All right, before we round out today's show, week 1 is just about a week and a half away. So get your Dolphins jerseys today. Make sure you're representing the Fins in week 1 on every game day, whether it be Sundays, Thursdays, Mondays, Saturdays, Fridays now this year. I don't really care. Dolphins jersey is the /chatsports.com/Dolphins jersey is the link. It's in the description and comments of today's episode. Get whatever player, whatever color, whatever size you need. Grab your jerseys today. All right, another addition to the practice squad, Isaiah Johnson, the UDFA from this past NFL draft out of Syracuse. Someone that I am actually very happy that he is returning to this Dolphins organization because he played extremely well in the preseason. Him and Storm Duck were the 2 headlining UDFAs, in my opinion, on that Dolphins defense throughout the first 3 games. Storm Duck makes the 53-man roster. Isaiah Johnson just barely gets cut, but he's got great size. He made a couple of really nice plays in the preseason. He had a really great PBU in the end zone against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Let up a touchdown a couple plays later, which was unfortunate. But Isaiah is someone that I do think could potentially really improve on this Dolphins practice squad and ultimately get a chance to make a 53-man roster in the future. Another addition to the P squad, Anthony McFarland Jr., who the Dolphins signed just a week and a half ago to be the majority running back alongside Jalen Wright in the final preseason game. And in that final preseason game, he had 12 rushing yards, couple catches, 12 receiving yards. Another player that is actually pretty good on special teams. So the Dolphins have a lot of good special teams returners on their roster in terms of practice squad on 53 with Malik Washington, Braxton Berrios, Anthony McFarland Jr., Dwayne Eskridge as well. Intriguing to see the Dolphins stockpile so many dynamic punt returners and kick returners on their roster, if you include 53 and practice squad. All right, two final additions to the Dolphins practice squad, at least as of right now. Two offensive linemen, Chasen Hines and Byron Matos. Now, this is interesting because Chasen Hines is on the practice squad, but Byron Matos, remember, we've told you about his story in the past, played basketball in college for South Florida, University of South Florida. Never played a snap of football, tried to transition, was with Miami's training camp, OTAs, minicamp, the entire offseason. He actually does not count against the Miami Dolphins practice squad. You get 16 names. He is not accounted for one of them, so Dolphins could technically have 17 players because he's part of the International Pathway Program. So it's another little cheeky move that Chris Grier made that allows Miami to have extra guys on your practice squad. We went through the 7 names added to the practice squad today, but if you remember yesterday with Nick Needham, Eric Ezukanma, and a couple other players on the P squad, let me know your favorite player that is on the practice squad of the Miami Dolphins. Drop a name for me down in the comment section. We'll give you a refresher, too, to just kind of wrap up today's video. Nick Needham, Hayden Rucci, Daquan Jackson, Jordan Colbert, Jonathan Harris, and Eric Ezukanma were the 6 people signed early yesterday that we reported on. Nick Needham is the best player on the practice squad without a question, and if a DB ever goes down in the safety room or, heck, even the cornerback room, I think Nick Needham would be one of the first people to get a call to the Dolphins' active roster. And then you saw the 6 people that we talked about today, 7 if you count Byron Matos, so the Dolphins are now sitting at 12 players officially on the practice squad, which allows them to add 4 more guys. You get 16 in total, but with Matos being an international pathway guy, the Dolphins actually have 17, so 4 more spots available to fill after the 6/7 additions made today. And make sure you are subscribed to the channel because more news will come out surrounding the Fins from now until week 1 against the Jacksonville Jaguars. So hit that sub button because we're going to have you covered on everything surrounding Miami. But also we're going to be live for that game against the Jaguars. It's going to be a ton of fun to open up the season on September 8th. So hit that sub button, and I'll see you there.